The realm is burning. From the icy wall in the north to the blazing halls of Dragonstone, crowns are forged in blood, and every man who calls himself king believes the gods are on his side. But in Westeros, oaths break faster than steel, and when kings clash, no one is safe. Welcome to the Page Turner, where we journey through the world of George R.R. Martin's A Song of Ice and Fire. Today, we unravel the chaos, ambition, and destiny that shape A Clash of Kings, the second book in the saga that redefined modern fantasy. This is the story of 5 kings and 1 queen, of fire and faith, of loyalty and betrayal. It's the story of a world where the night grows darker, the dragons grow stronger, and the true war, the one for the dawn of the world, is only beginning. The second book of A Song of Ice and Fire, A Clash of Kings, opens in the long shadow of a Game of Thrones. The death of Eddard Stark and the execution of honor in the capital have shattered the political balance of Westeros. From the Iron Throne in King's Landing to the frozen edges of the north and the burning deserts across the narrow sea, power is splintering, and the land braces for war. The novel begins under the blazing light of a red comet streaking across the sky. Its appearance becomes a unifying omen, interpreted differently by every people and faction in the story. In King's Landing, it is seen as a sign of victory for House Lannister. In the north, some believe it heralds vengeance for the Starks. To others, especially Daenerys Targaryen, it is the mark of dragons reborn. The comet's fire symbolizes the coming chaos, a new age of war, prophecy, and the supernatural. It sets the tone for the entire novel. The world has changed, and blood and flame will decide its fate. When the story resumes in the capital, the aftermath of Ned Stark's execution has left King's Landing in turmoil. King Joffrey Baratheon, still a cruel and impulsive boy, rules through fear, backed by his mother Queen Cersei and the powerful Lannister family. But their grip on power is tenuous. The city is starving, the people are angry, and the realm is fragmenting. To stabilize the situation, Tywin Lannister sends his son Tyrion to serve as Hand of the King in his place. Tyrion's arrival transforms the political heart of the book. Though mocked as the imp, Tyrion is sharp, pragmatic, and understands power far better than his family. His goal is clear: secure his family's hold on the throne while preventing Joffrey's recklessness and Cersei's paranoia from destroying them all. Tyrion quickly begins to consolidate authority. He purges corrupt officials, replaces the commander of the City Watch, and uses cunning diplomacy to manipulate Varys, Peter Baelish, Littlefinger, and Grand Maester Pycelle. His reforms bring a measure of order back to the city, but his efforts are shadowed by the looming war outside the capital's walls. Far to the north, Robb Stark has declared himself king in the north, following his father's execution. Young and untested, Robb nonetheless wins major victories against Lannister armies, earning respect from his bannermen and fear from his enemies. His direwolf Grey Wind and his own growing command ability lend him an almost mythic status among his men. But Robb faces a complex political landscape. He controls the Riverlands through his mother Catelyn Stark's family ties to House Tully. Yet he needs allies to sustain the war. The Frey alliance, secured at the Twins in the previous book, remains uneasy. Lord Walder Frey's support is conditional on Robb marrying one of his daughters, a promise that hangs like a shadow over future events. Catelyn acts as Robb's diplomat, urging caution and seeking peace. She travels south to negotiate alliances, hoping to end the war before it consumes the realm. Yet the conflict deepens as new claimants to the Iron Throne emerge, each demanding loyalty and each convinced of their divine or legal right to rule. The death of King Robert Baratheon has unleashed a dynastic crisis. His two brothers, Stannis and Renly, both lay claim to the Iron Throne, rejecting Joffrey's legitimacy after learning the truth, that he is the bastard son of Jaime and Cersei Lannister, not Robert's true heir. Stannis Baratheon, the elder of the two brothers, is rigid, grim, and obsessed with justice. He rules from Dragonstone, the ancient Targaryen stronghold, where he embraces the fiery faith of R'hllor, the Lord of Light. This conversion is influenced by Melisandre, the mysterious Red Priestess who believes Stannis is the chosen hero foretold in prophecy. Azor Ahai, reborn, destined to wield the flaming sword, Lightbringer. Under Melisandre's guidance, Stannis burns the statues of the seven gods and demands his lords convert to the new faith. His moral rigidity and religious zeal alienate many potential allies, but his claim is legally the strongest. His fleet and disciplined army make him a formidable threat, though his lack of charisma and political subtlety leave him isolated. By contrast, Renly Baratheon, the youngest brother, rules from Highgarden with the full support of House Tyrell. Charismatic, handsome, and loved by his followers, Renly declares himself king as well. His marriage to Margaery Tyrell cements an alliance with one of the most powerful and wealthy families in Westeros. Renly's army is the largest in the realm, numbering over 100,000 men, and his court is bright with youthful idealism and glamour. Yet beneath the pageantry lies a fatal weakness. Renly's claim is politically opportunistic, based on popularity rather than law. His open rivalry with Stannis splits the Baratheon cause in two, ensuring that neither brother can easily triumph. Catelyn Stark, sent as Robb's envoy, meets with both brothers in an attempt to broker peace and unite their strength against the Lannisters. Her efforts, however, are futile. Pride, jealousy, and Melisandre's growing influence will soon bring tragedy. While the great houses of the mainland fight for crowns and banners, the Ironborn of the Iron Islands see opportunity. Their lord, Balon Greyjoy, who once rebelled against the Iron Throne years before, declares himself king of the Isles and the North. Balon's ambition is not to sit on the Iron Throne, but to reclaim the old ways of the seafaring reavers. We do not so. He sends his sons to lead raids along the western coast of the north. His surviving son, Theon Greyjoy, returns home after years as Eddard Stark's ward and hostage. Theon hopes to win his father's respect and forge an alliance between the Ironborn and the Starks. But Balon rejects him and instead manipulates Theon's desire for approval. Theon is ordered to lead an attack not on southern foes, but on the north itself, a betrayal that will soon devastate his former home. In the far north, Jon Snow and the Night's Watch face their own rising threat. The Watch, numbering fewer than 1,000 men, begins a great ranging beyond the wall to investigate reports of missing rangers, wildling uprisings, and supernatural forces stirring in the frozen wastes. Led by Lord Commander Jorah Mormont, the expedition travels into the haunted forests, visiting Craster's Keep, where they meet Craster, a wildling who survives by sacrificing his sons to the mysterious creatures known as the Others. There they encounter Mance Rayder, the self-proclaimed King Beyond the Wall, who is uniting the free folk for a great migration south, fleeing something far worse than the Night's Watch imagines. Jon's experiences beyond the wall begin to challenge his understanding of loyalty, duty, and morality. He sees that the Watch's oaths may not be enough to face what's coming. The wild, icy north is no longer merely a border. It's becoming a battlefield between the living and the dead. In the east, Daenerys Targaryen leads the remnants of her small khalasar across the Red Waste, a barren desert. After the death of Khal Drogo and the miraculous birth of her dragons, Drogon, Rhaegal, and Viserion, Daenerys has become a figure of myth. Yet her people are starving, and the dragons are small and fragile. Guided by Ser Jorah Mormont, she pushes onward until they reach the wealthy trading city of Korth, whose rulers are both fascinated and fearful of her dragons. Daenerys begins to understand that her destiny lies not in surviving as a refugee, but in reclaiming her birthright, the Iron Throne. Yet in Korth, she learns the cruel reality of politics. Everyone wants her dragons, but no one will give her an army. Her faith in herself and her dragons grows, even as betrayal surrounds her. The comet in the sky becomes her symbol, a sign that her time is coming, though the road to power will be paved in fire and loss. By the midpoint of a clash of kings, Westeros stands divided among 5 kings. Joffrey Baratheon, ruling from King's Landing with the Lannisters. Stannis Baratheon, claiming the throne from Dragonstone, backed by the Lord of Light. Renly Baratheon, ruling from the Reach with House Tyrell's support. Robb Stark, king in the north, seeking vengeance and independence. Balon Greyjoy, king of the Isles in the north, a raider reclaiming old glory. Each believes themselves chosen or destined. Yet none see that their wars are merely preludes to greater doom. The dark forces rising beyond the wall, and the dragons stirring in the east. As a clash of kings deepens, the chaos of succession becomes open warfare. The Iron Throne wobbles under Joffrey's cruel rule, while his uncle Tyrion Lannister, as Hand of the King, struggles to maintain order. Beyond the capital, the Baratheon brothers march toward each other, and the kingdoms bleed as every lord seeks advantage. In King's Landing, Tyrion Lannister quickly realizes that being Hand of the King means ruling in a city that's falling apart. Food shortages, plague, and resentment boil among the small folk. The populace blames the Lannisters for Ned Stark's death and the unending war, and Joffrey's cruelty only fuels their hatred. Tyrion moves to impose control through cunning rather than force. He understands that his greatest enemies are not the armies outside the walls, but the vipers within them, his own family and the royal court. He begins by testing his council's loyalty. He tells Varys, Littlefinger, and Pycelle 3 different versions of a secret marriage alliance, then observes which story reaches Cersei's ears. When Cersei confronts him, Tyrion discovers that Pycelle was the informer and has him imprisoned, demonstrating that deceit can serve as both weapon and shield. Tyrion also removes Janos Slynt, commander of the City Watch and one of Ned Stark's betrayers, sending him to the Wall. In Slynt's place, he appoints Bronn, his sellsword companion, a man loyal only to coin, but more reliable than any scheming noble. Tyrion's reforms earn him grudging respect from the city's elites, but deepen Cersei's paranoia. She resents his control and fears his influence over Joffrey, leading to an ongoing battle of wits between siblings. Yet for all Tyrion's intelligence, he remains haunted by his father's contempt and the danger of being a dwarf in a world that despises weakness. Meanwhile, King Joffrey Baratheon rules with childish sadism. He delights in cruelty and humiliation, taking pleasure in tormenting Sansa Stark, now his hostage and betrothed. He forces her to publicly praise him after beatings and executions, cementing her role as a political pawn. Sansa's growing maturity begins to show. She learns to conceal her feelings, echoing Tyrion's lessons in survival. Though she dreams of escape, she plays the part of the obedient lady, even as she quietly despises the boy king. Her only small act of defiance is endurance. The small council, burdened by Joffrey's recklessness, looks to Tyrion as the only one capable of restraining him. But Joffrey's petulance and Cersei's protectiveness make this a dangerous task. The city's unrest, compounded by starvation, creates a powder keg that threatens to explode at any moment. Far to the south, the two Baratheon brothers prepare for battle. Their conflict becomes one of the book's central threads, a clash of pride, faith, and destiny. Renly Baratheon's camp near Storm's End gleams with spectacle. His banners fill the fields, his knights parade in bright armor, and his queen, Margaery Tyrell, and her family preside over feasts and tournaments. To Renly's followers, war feels like a pageant, a game for glory. Catelyn Stark, sent by her son Robb to negotiate peace, witnesses the vanity of it all. Renly, charming and confident, refuses to bow to Stannis' claim, arguing that his popularity makes him the true king. He even proposes an alliance with Robb, promising the North autonomy once the Lannisters are defeated. But Catelyn, weary and pragmatic, sees that ambition blinds them both. Beneath the splendor, secrets fester. Renly's marriage to Margaery remains unconsummated. His true affection lies with her brother, Sir Loras Tyrell, the Knight of Flowers. Their relationship, while tender, highlights the contradiction in Renly's life. A man who plays at kingship, but lacks the ruthlessness to seize it fully. Across the field at Dragonstone, Stannis Baratheon broods in austere contrast. His camp is small, his followers disciplined but joyless. His chief counselor is Melisandre of Aeshai, the Red Priestess of R'hllor, whose fiery faith dominates his court. She preaches that Stannis is the prophesied hero, destined to save the world from darkness, and urges him to use her magic to destroy his enemies. His loyal advisor, Sir Davos Seaworth, a former smuggler raised to knighthood, distrusts her, seeing the corruption her influence brings. The brothers' confrontation becomes inevitable. They meet in person, each demanding the other's surrender. Stannis' legal right clashes with Renly's charisma, and neither will yield. Catelyn, caught between them, pleads for peace. But the gods and men are already set on blood. On the night before battle, as Renly readies his massive host to crush Stannis' smaller army, Catelyn witnesses a horror. While she and Renly converse in his tent, a shadow takes form, a creature shaped like a man, but with Stannis' face. It plunges a blade into Renly's heart, killing him instantly. The act is silent, swift, and supernatural. Panic consumes Renly's camp. His knights scatter, his armies splinter, and many swear fealty to Stannis out of fear or pragmatism. The Tyrells, humiliated and enraged, retreat toward King's Landing to forge a new alliance, one that will soon change the course of the war. Catelyn escapes in the chaos, aided by Brienne of Tarth, Renly's devoted female knight. Brienne is falsely accused of the murder, but pledges her loyalty to Catelyn. Together, they flee toward the Riverlands, bound by grief and a shared sense of honor in a dishonorable world. Stannis, now uncontested among the Baratheon brothers, marches his united forces toward King's Landing. Yet the manner of his victory, assassination by dark magic taints his cause. Even his own men whisper of sorcery and damnation. In King's Landing, word of Stannis' approach spreads quickly. His fleet is the largest in the realm, his soldiers hardened by discipline and faith. The Lannisters prepare for siege, knowing that defeat would mean their extinction. Tyrion, understanding the danger, takes command of the city's defenses. He orders the construction of massive chains to block the Blackwater Bay and stockpiles wildfire, a volatile green substance that burns hotter than dragon flame. The city's alchemists, the pyromancers, produce it in great quantities under his supervision. Tyrion also strengthens the walls, positions archers and catapults, and secretly plans a devastating trap. His genius in strategy stands in stark contrast to Joffrey's immaturity and Cersei's scheming. He emerges not only as the de facto ruler, but as the moral center of the capital, a rare voice of reason amid madness. At the same time, the city grows increasingly unstable. Food shortages lead to riots. During one, Joffrey's cruelty provokes the mob to attack the royal party. Sansa is nearly killed before being saved by Sandor Clegane, the Hound. The people's hatred is clear. To them, Joffrey is not a king, but a monster in golden armor. Cersei, consumed by paranoia, hoards supplies and accuses Tyrion of plotting to usurp her son. The Hand's only true allies are Bronn, his sellsword captain, and Shae, the woman he loves, though he knows her affection may be as fleeting as his fortunes. Meanwhile, in the north, Theon Greyjoy carries out his father's will. Tasked with raiding the western coast, Theon instead launches a daring strike on his former home, Winterfell. Using only a small force, he captures the castle while its lord, Bran Stark, remains behind with a skeleton garrison. Theon's betrayal shocks the realm and marks his transformation from ward to villain. Seeking respect from his father and his men, he executes the castle's defenders and tries to rule through fear. Yet his actions soon spiral out of control, setting the stage for tragedy that will shatter the North's stability. As the second act of the novel closes, the pieces of the great game are in motion. Tyrion fortifies the capital, preparing for Stannis' attack. Stannis marches under a banner of fire and vengeance. Theon betrays his foster family, opening a new front in the war. Catelyn and Brienne flee into the uncertainty of a fractured land. Robb's victories begin to isolate him politically as the southern lords turn inward. The War of the Five Kings is no longer a contest of crowns. It's a crucible that will test loyalty, faith, and humanity itself. While the southern kingdoms burn in the fires of ambition, the north and riverlands become a theater of vengeance and betrayal. Robb Stark, the newly crowned king in the north, continues to win battles but begins to lose control over the fragile alliance that sustains his war. At the same time, one of his oldest friends commits an act that will turn the tide of northern loyalty forever. Though Robb Stark himself rarely appears in A Clash of Kings, his presence dominates the northern cause. His army has won every major battle against the Lannisters so far. His victories at Whispering Wood and Oxcross have made him a legend, the young wolf. He outmaneuvers the older, more experienced Jaime Lannister, captures him, and sends word to King's Landing demanding the North's independence. His successes give the River Lords hope and bring songs to the camps. But the victories are costly. Every step south stretches his supply lines thinner, and his absence from Winterfell leaves his home vulnerable. Robb rules from the field through letters and envoys, relying heavily on his mother, Catelyn, and bannermen like Roose Bolton and Rickard Karstark. Yet, even among allies, ambition stirs. The Boltons, always known for cruelty, seem too eager for blood. And the Karstarks burn for revenge after 2 of their sons die fighting the Lannisters. Catelyn, moving through the war-torn countryside, sees firsthand the devastation. Villages are burned, crops destroyed, small folk hanged by raiders from both sides. The songs of victory ring hollow to her. She knows each triumph brings only more widows and orphans. Her deepest pain remains personal. 2 of her daughters, Sansa and Arya, are missing in King's Landing, though she does not yet know Arya has escaped. And Bran and Rickon remain in Winterfell. Every move Robb makes feels like it pulls the family further apart. After Renly's death, Catelyn and Brienne of Tarth flee from the Tyrell Baratheon camps. They travel north through war-torn lands, growing close despite their differences. Brienne swears herself to Catelyn's service, pledging her sword and loyalty. Catelyn accepts, recognizing Brienne's strength and integrity. Together, they navigate a realm collapsing under the weight of war, a world where loyalty is punished and honor seems meaningless. At Riverrun, Catelyn rejoins her father, Lord Hoster Tully, who is gravely ill, and her brother Edmure, who now commands the defense of the Riverlands. They receive grim news from all corners. Tywin Lannister's forces regroup in the south, and rumors swirl of the Ironborn attacking the western coast of the north. When Catelyn hears that Theon Greyjoy, her former ward, has betrayed them, her faith in everything once stable shatters. The gods seem deaf to her prayers, and even her son's victories feel empty. Her arc becomes one of disillusionment. She moves from hope to a grim acceptance that no war can bring back what she's lost. Back in the north, Theon Greyjoy's story becomes one of the novel's most tragic transformations. Once Robb's foster brother and friend Theon was sent by Robb to treat with his father, Balon Greyjoy, seeking an alliance. But Balon, proud and bitter from his failed rebellion years earlier, mocks the idea of bowing to a king in the north. He declares himself king of the Isles and the north, planning to take advantage of Robb's southern war to strike at his undefended homeland. Desperate to prove himself to his father, Theon turns on the Starks. He sails up the stony shore with a small raiding party and, through cunning and luck, captures Winterfell. He expects glory and respect, but what follows is ruin. Theon tries to act like a lord, issuing commands and taking hostages. But his insecurity drives every decision. Bran Stark, acting as lord in his brother's absence, is taken captive. And the people of Winterfell, once Theon's family, despise him as a traitor. When Ser Rodrik Cassel leads a force to retake the castle, Theon realizes he cannot hold it. To maintain control through fear, he makes a monstrous choice. After Bran and Rickon escape with the help of Hodor, Osha, and the direwolves, Theon tracks 2 peasant boys, murders them, and burns their bodies to pass them off as the Stark heirs. The horror of his act isolates him completely. Even his own men are disgusted. Theon's delusion that this atrocity will earn him respect proves fatal. The North remembers, and word of the supposed death spreads quickly, breaking the hearts of Catelyn and Robb and destroying the Stark cause's moral standing. But Theon's punishment comes swiftly. Later, he finds himself besieged, not by Stark men, but by Ramsay Snow, the bastard son of Roose Bolton. Pretending to be an ally, Ramsay infiltrates Winterfell, betrays Theon's garrison, and sacks the castle. Theon is taken prisoner and Winterfell is burned. Smoke rises over the north, symbolizing the end of peace in the last stronghold of the Starks. Unbeknownst to all, Arya Stark is alive. She travels under the alias Ari, a boy among recruits for the Night's Watch being taken north by Yoren, a loyal brother who had rescued her from King's Landing. But Yoren's small band is attacked by Lannister soldiers led by Sir Amory Lorch, a brutal ambush that leaves most dead or captured. Arya is taken to Harrenhal, a vast, ruined castle now held by the Lannisters. There she witnesses the full horror of war. Prisoners tortured for information, corpses hanging from battlements, the cruelty of soldiers who fight for no one but themselves. She becomes a servant girl, hiding her identity to survive. At Harrenhal, Arya meets Jaqen H'ghar, a mysterious assassin imprisoned in the dungeons. When she saves his life during the escape from the attack, he repays her by offering to kill 3 people of her choosing. She names her tormentors, men responsible for unspeakable violence. And Jaqen fulfills each death with uncanny precision. Her final request, however, is bolder. She orders Jaqen to help her escape. He agrees, kills guards, and gives her a strange iron coin, instructing her to present it to any man of Braavos and say the words, Valar Morghulis. Then he vanishes, leaving Arya forever changed, a child hardened by death and driven by vengeance. By the end of her arc, Arya and a small band of survivors flee Harrenhal, heading north toward her family. But the world has turned too dark for reunions. Arya is no longer the innocent girl from Winterfell. She is a survivor shaped by the brutality of war. In the Riverlands, chaos reigns. Villages burn, crops rot, and armies march endlessly. Tywin Lannister, though not yet victorious, begins to regroup. His strategy is clear. Hold Harrenhal, bleed Robb's forces through attrition, and let the southern lords, Stannis, Renly's remnants, and the Reach, weaken one another. The region becomes a microcosm of Westeros itself, fractured, ruined, and morally decayed. Every side claims to fight for honor, justice, or gods, yet none can control the monster they've unleashed. By this stage, in a clash of kings, the tides of fortune are beginning to turn. Robb's brilliant victories are undermined by political isolation and Theon's betrayal. Catelyn's faith in alliances crumbles as she sees honor replaced by ambition. Arya learns to survive through death and deception, foreshadowing her transformation in later books. Theon's quest for identity leads to utter ruin, marking one of the darkest downfalls in the series. The wolves of Winterfell, once proud and united, are scattered, hunted, or dead. The North bleeds, and as the human wars rage, darker powers begin to stir beyond the wall. While the southern kingdoms burn with the ambitions of men, the true darkness in A Clash of Kings grows in the frozen wilderness beyond the wall. Here, George R.R. Martin shifts his lens from politics to myth, exploring ancient threats, forgotten powers, and the thin line separating civilization from chaos. Jon Snow's storyline mirrors this transition, from youthful duty to a grim confrontation with the unknown. At Castle Black, the Night's Watch prepares for the largest expedition in living memory, the Great Ranging. Under Lord Commander Jorah Mormont, nearly 300 men set out to investigate a series of mysterious disappearances. Whole villages abandoned, wildlings vanishing, and rangers like Benjen Stark, Jon's uncle, never returning. Jon, now Mormont's squire, rides with the main host. Though still young and uncertain, He's earned respect for his courage during the earlier mutiny against Mormont. His direwolf, Ghost, remains his constant companion, a silent, spectral presence foreshadowing Jon's deepening connection to something otherworldly. Before leaving, Jon struggles with conflicting loyalties. He dreams of his family in the south, of Robb's war, of vengeance for Ned. But Mormont reminds him that the Watch's duty is not to kings, but to the living. The Night's Watch takes no part, the old bear says. The realm is full of fools fighting their little wars. But it is the cold winds rising we must fear. Those words will prove prophetic. The ranging moves north through the haunted forest, an endless expanse of snow, pines, and silence. The farther they go, the less sign there is of life, not even crows or wolves. Jon and others feel watched, haunted by unseen eyes. They pass the Fist of the First Men, an ancient ring fort built by the first men thousands of years ago. It becomes their base, a symbol of the Watch's long memory and its vulnerability. Among the Rangers is Qhorin Halfhand, a legendary scout from the Shadow Tower who commands a smaller detachment. He joins Mormont to share grim news. The wildlings are uniting under a single leader, Mance Rayder, the king beyond the wall, a former brother of the Watch who abandoned his vows to lead the free folk. This revelation marks a turning point. The Night's Watch has always seen the wildlings as disorganized tribes. But Mance has achieved the impossible: unity. Rumors claim he seeks to march south, not to conquer, but to escape something worse. The others, ancient beings of ice and death who have begun to stir after thousands of years. As the Rangers move farther north, strange events multiply. Jon and Ghost discover two corpses, men of the Watch, their skin pale as snow, their eyes blue. The bodies show no wounds, yet the ground around them is frozen solid. That night, one of the corpses reanimates, attacking Mormont. Jon burns the creature with fire, realizing too late that these are Whites, the undead servants of the others. The attack confirms the ancient legends. The long night is no myth, and the dead truly walk again. Mormont sends ravens south, warning the Seven Kingdoms, though none there will listen. To the kings in the south, this is a minor border concern. To Jon, it's a revelation. While men fight over crowns, something much older threatens them all. Mormont sends Qhorin Halfhand and a small group, including Jon, deeper into the Frostfang Mountains to scout Mance Rayder's army. This mission becomes Jon's test, a journey that will define his identity and his future allegiance. As they climb into the treacherous mountains, the landscape turns surreal. Vast ice caves, frozen rivers, and ghostly auroras painting the night sky. The men begin to die, hunted by wildling scouts. The Watch's strength fades, while the wildlings' numbers seem endless. Eventually, Jon and Qhorin capture a young wildling woman named Ygritte. She's fiery, mocking, and unafraid, speaking of freedom and life beyond the wall's laws. When Jon hesitates to kill her, Qhorin orders it. But Jon lets her go, an act of mercy that will change everything. Separated from his party after a skirmish, Jon is captured by wildlings, including Ygritte. She spares his life, convincing her comrades to take him to Mance Rayder. Along the way, Jon learns about wildling life, chaotic, harsh, but strangely egalitarian. Unlike the rigid hierarchies of the Seven Kingdoms, the free folk follow strength, not birth. Ygritte's worldview fascinates Jon. She teases him, calling him Lord Snow, and questions his blind loyalty to vows made to dying men. Through her, he begins to see that the wall divides not just land, but freedom and servitude. An insight that shakes his black and white sense of duty. When they finally reach Mance's camp, Jon witnesses an army beyond imagining. Tens of thousands of wildlings, clans, raiders, giants, and mammoths, all gathered under one banner. Mance himself is charismatic and pragmatic, a king who wears no crown. He tells Jon that he doesn't seek conquest, but escape. The others are real, and they're coming. Jon understands now that the Night's Watch stands between two existential threats. One human, one inhuman, and both will test his loyalty to the breaking point. Qhorin and a few surviving rangers are also captured. Knowing they face death, Qhorin devises a plan to save Jon and place a spy in the wildling ranks. In front of the free folk, he attacks Jon, forcing the boy to fight him. In a brutal, emotional duel, Jon kills Qhorin, earning the wildlings' respect and his place among them. Ygritte, watching, understands what Qhorin intended, though she never says so. The act becomes Jon's passage into adulthood, a betrayal that is also an act of loyalty. He must live as a traitor to serve as a guardian. Jon's inner conflict, duty versus love, vows versus humanity, begins here. It will define his story across the entire series. Meanwhile, in his dreams, Jon sees through ghosts' eyes, running on snow and hunting prey. These are not mere dreams. They are warg visions, signs of an ancient magic stirring again. The old powers, long dormant, are waking in the blood of the Starks. The novel subtly ties Jon's arc to Bran's mystical journey in Winterfell's crypts, and later, beyond the Wall. Both boys are being drawn toward a fate larger than their family's wars. The return of the world's primal forces. The Night's Watch story reaches a chilling climax near the end of the book. Mormont's main force camps at the Fist of the First Men, unaware that they are surrounded by the other's army. In the final chapters, Samwell Tarly, left behind at the base, witnesses unnatural storms and hears the sounds of death in the woods. The dead have come for the living. The book ends their storyline on the brink of annihilation, a perfect reflection of Martin's structure. While men play the Game of Thrones, the true war, the war for the dawn, has already begun. Jon's arc in A Clash of Kings deepens the novel's exploration of identity, duty, and awakening. He must kill the man he admires to fulfill a higher purpose. He learns that enemies are human, and that monsters may be closer to home. His visions, ghosts' instincts, and the supernatural assaults blur the line between myth and history. Thematically, this storyline stands apart from the rest of the book. A slow, cold reminder that all the crowns and castles of the South mean nothing if the wall falls. As Part 4 ends, Jon infiltrates Mance's army, poised to become a spy among the free folk. Mormont's men face the advancing dead at the Fist of the First Men. Ygritte's presence begins to fracture Jon's sense of loyalty and self. The wall becomes more than a barrier. It is now the last line of defense between humanity and extinction. Winter is not coming. It's already here. As the storms of war and winter gather, the Seven Kingdoms brace for their first great reckoning. The scattered ambitions of kings, queens, and rebels crash together in blood and fire. While across the sea, dragons stir in the east, and ancient prophecies begin to awaken. The climax of A Clash of Kings is the Battle of Blackwater, one of the most iconic and cinematic conflicts in modern fantasy literature. Stannis Baratheon, newly victorious over his brother Renly, sails toward King's Landing with the largest fleet Westeros has ever seen. His goal: to seize the Iron Throne and punish the Lannisters for treachery and incest. His army is vast, disciplined, and driven by zeal. Yet within the city, Tyrion Lannister prepares a trap worthy of his cunning. As Hand of the King, Tyrion commands the city's defenses. His political enemies, his sister Cersei, his nephew King Joffrey, and the schemers of the court, have tried to undermine him. But Tyrion has planned every detail of the defense with ruthless precision. When Stannis' fleet enters Blackwater Bay, they see what appears to be a small, vulnerable royal fleet waiting for them. But as the Baratheon ships advance, a single, unmanned vessel drifts among them, a fire ship loaded with wildfire. Tyrion gives the signal, and the bay erupts into green flame. The wildfire explosion is apocalyptic. Hundreds of ships are consumed instantly, men are burned alive, and the sea itself seems to burn. The sky turns emerald, and molten fire rains down. The blast annihilates the vanguard of Stannis' navy, cutting his fleet in half. Yet Stannis, relentless and unshaken, orders the remainder of his forces to land and storm the city walls. Within King's Landing, chaos reigns. The small folk riot, priests pray, and Cersei gathers the noble women and children in Maegor's holdfast, prepared to commit suicide rather than fall into enemy hands. She drinks heavily and taunts Sansa Stark, who has been left behind as a hostage and symbol of loyalty. Sansa, frightened but composed, prays for her family's safety and tries to comfort the women around her. As Cersei's bitterness spills out, her hatred of men, her fear of prophecy, her obsession with her children. Sansa begins to understand the corruption at the heart of power. She is no longer the naive girl from Winterfell. She now sees the Iron Throne for what it truly is: a cage wrapped in gold. On the walls, Tyrion leads the defense personally. With the Kingsguard failing to inspire courage and Joffrey fleeing the field at Cersei's command, Tyrion rallies the men, shouting, "They say I'm half a man. What does that make the lot of you?" His courage turns the tide. For a moment, the defenders believe they can win. Then comes the ground assault. Stannis' troops breach the gates, battering through with sheer strength. Tyrion unleashes his final trap. The giant chain boom, secretly built across the bay, slams shut, trapping Stannis' ships between fire and stone. Still, the attackers press on. The battle descends into carnage on the mudflats and bridges. As Tyrion leads a counterattack, he is betrayed by Sir Mandon Moore, one of the Kingsguard, who tries to kill him under orders that likely came from Cersei. Podrick Payne, Tyrion's young squire, saves him by spearing Moore through the neck. But Tyrion is grievously wounded, his face nearly cleaved in half by a sword. Just as the city seems doomed, reinforcements arrive. At the last moment, the Tyrells, led by Sir Loras Tyrell and Lord Mace Tyrell, ride into the fray, joined by Tywin Lannister, who has marched from Harrenhal. The combined Lannister-Tyrell army crushes Stannis' remaining forces. The Baratheon fleet burns, Stannis' soldiers are slaughtered, and the war for the Iron Throne takes its first major turn. The Lannisters have won the battle, but at an enormous cost, and the victory sows the seeds of future betrayals. In the aftermath, power shifts dramatically. Tywin Lannister returns to King's Landing as Hand of the King, stripping Tyrion of authority. The Tyrells cement their alliance with the Lannisters through a betrothal. King Joffrey to Margaery Tyrell, Renly's widow. Stannis Baratheon, his fleet destroyed and army broken, retreats to Dragonstone, a defeated man. Stannis nearly gives in to despair, but Melisandre of Ashai refuses to let him die in shame. She shows him visions in her fires, of shadows and ice, of a greater war to come, and of his destiny to fight it. She tells him that his loss was necessary to cleanse him of pride, and that his true war lies ahead, not for a throne, but for the fate of the world. Haunted, humbled, and reforged by faith, Stannis begins to accept that his path is one of fire and prophecy, not crowns and castles. Tyrion awakens days later, disfigured and demoted. His heroism is erased by propaganda. Joffrey and Tywin take credit for the victory, and Tyrion is cast aside. Even his lover Shae urges him to flee the capital. His only comfort comes from Varys, who hints that Tyrion's actions saved the realm, though no one will ever thank him for it. Tyrion's arc ends not with triumph, but with disillusionment. He has proven himself more capable than his family ever believed. Yet he remains an outcast in his own house, a hero unseen, a savior forgotten. The seeds of his future rebellion against his family are quietly sown here. After the battle, Sansa's betrothal to Joffrey is dissolved, a public humiliation masked as mercy. He announces his engagement to Margaery Tyrell instead, winning the crowd's love. Sansa feels a flicker of hope. She may be free of Joffrey at last. But Sandor Clegane, the Hound, who has fled the carnage of battle and his own conscience, warns her that she is still a prisoner. In a dark, emotional scene, he visits her during the chaos of the siege, drunk and broken, offering to take her away. She refuses, torn between fear and compassion, and when he disappears into the night, she realizes she's lost her only protector. Sansa's arc ends in quiet endurance. She remains a prisoner in silk, surrounded by smiling enemies. But the experience has hardened her. The girl who once dreamed of songs now understands the cost of them. Across the narrow sea, Daenerys Targaryen's storyline provides the novel's most mythic and symbolic thread. Having hatched her dragons at the end of a Game of Thrones, she journeys east through the Red Waste, a barren desert where her small Khalasar nearly dies of thirst. Eventually, they reach Korth, a glittering city of merchants, warlocks, and liars, a place of wonders and deceit. The 13, Korth's ruling council, welcome her as a curiosity, a young queen with real dragons. Yet Dany quickly learns that fascination does not equal respect. She begs for ships to reclaim her throne, but none take her seriously. To them, she is a beggar with beasts. Her dragons, still small, symbolize rebirth and danger, but also vulnerability. Korth's magicians covet them, and assassins move in the shadows. Only her knight, Ser Jorah Mormont, remains steadfast, though his growing love for her becomes a quiet burden. Seeking answers and power, Daenerys visits the House of the Undying, a hall of illusions ruled by ancient warlocks. Inside, she experiences visions that shape her destiny. A feast of corpses, with a wolf's head on a man's body, foreshadowing the Red Wedding. A dragon hatching from stone amid fire, a symbol of her own power. A man with a silver harp and a blue flower growing from a wall of ice. Hints of Rhaegar Targaryen, her brother, and the mystery of Jon Snow's parentage. Finally, she hears the prophecy. 3 fires you must light, one for life, one for death, and one to love. 3 mounts you must ride, one to bed, one to dread, and one to love. 3 treasons you will know. Once for blood, once for gold, and once for love. When the warlocks try to trap her in an illusion, Daenerys commands her dragons to burn them. The house of the Undying is destroyed in fire. A symbolic rebirth of magic and a sign that her dragons are more than mere creatures. They are weapons of destiny. Afterward, Dany realizes she cannot rely on the generosity of others. The world will not give her a throne. She must take it. With her followers, Jorah, her blood riders, and her dragons, she vows to sail west and reclaim her birthright. Her story closes in determination and fire. The last heir of the dragon, rising from the ashes of deceit. By the end of A Clash of Kings, the known world stands on the edge of transformation. The Lannisters hold King's Landing but are surrounded by enemies and poisoned by pride. Stannis broods on Dragonstone, his faith twisting into zealotry. Robb Stark's power wanes amid betrayal and isolation. Theon Greyjoy lies captive in his own ruin. Jon Snow walks among the wildlings, his loyalty and identity unraveling. Daenerys rises as a symbol of rebirth, the fire that will one day meet the ice. The title of the novel, A Clash of Kings, reveals its deeper meaning. While men war for crowns, the real conflict is elemental. Fire against ice, faith against reason, death against life. The book ends not with peace, but with ominous silence. The calm before the storm. The board is set. The kings are broken, and the game will never be the same again.
Please like, comment, share, and subscribe for more videos.